Imagine this for a second. Red and blue lights flare in your rearview mirror. Your stomach tightens, your heart rate jumps, and your mind starts racing through everything you've done today. You tell yourself, relax, I've done nothing wrong. You roll down the window, take a breath, and prepare to be polite, cooperative, normal. Because if you're innocent, you have nothing to hide, right? That belief has quietly ruined the lives of thousands of people. Not because they were criminals, not because they were reckless, but because they said the wrong thing at the wrong moment to the wrong person, believing honesty alone would protect them. In the next few minutes, you're going to hear stories, real principles, and real consequences that most Americans don't learn until it's far too late. These are the 5 things you should never say to police in the United States, even if you are completely innocent, especially if you are innocent. This isn't about hating law enforcement. It's not about being rude, aggressive, or defiant. It's about understanding how the system actually works, not how movies and TV tell you it works. Because once you understand that, you'll realize something unsettling. The most dangerous thing you can do during a police encounter is talk too much. Let's start with the phrase that feels harmless, friendly, even responsible. I know why you stopped me. It sounds cooperative, it sounds mature, it sounds like you're helping speed things along. But the moment you say those words, you've just volunteered to do the officer's job for them. When an officer pulls you over, they already have a reason. It might be a broken taillight, speeding, a rolling stop, or sometimes just a hunch that needs confirmation. But when you say, I know why you stopped me, you're not just acknowledging the stop. You're inviting yourself into a legal minefield. Because what usually comes next is silence. The officer waits. And now you feel awkward, so you fill the gap. I might have been going a little fast, or I didn't see the sign, or I was checking my phone for a second. Each of those statements is a confession, even if it feels minor, even if you think it doesn't matter, even if you believe honesty will earn you leniency. It rarely does. What it does is lock you into a version of events that you can't take back. If the officer's reason for stopping you was different, you may have just given them a better one. If it was weaker, you just strengthened it. And if the stop escalates later, your own words will be written down, recorded, and possibly played back in court, stripped of tone, context, and intention. Now let's go deeper. One of the most dangerous sentences you can say to police is also one of the most human. I didn't do anything wrong. It feels logical. You're innocent. You want to make that clear. You want to establish your mindset early. But here's the problem. That sentence is not a shield. It's a challenge. To an officer, I didn't do anything wrong isn't evidence. It's an opinion, and opinions invite scrutiny. Once you say it, the next step is often, okay, then you won't mind answering a few questions. And now you're talking, explaining, clarifying, filling in details that no one asked for. This is where innocent people get trapped, because innocence doesn't protect you from inconsistency. You might misremember a time. You might get nervous and stumble over words. You might contradict yourself slightly because stress affects memory. And suddenly, what began as I didn't do anything wrong becomes why did your story change? Police are trained to notice inconsistencies, not intentions. They are trained to gather statements, not validate innocence. And once a discrepancy appears, it doesn't matter how small it is. It becomes the focus. There are people sitting in prison today not because of physical evidence, but because they talked themselves into a corner while trying to prove they were innocent. Now, let's talk about a phrase that seems polite, even respectful. Sure, I can explain. This one is subtle, dangerous because it feels harmless. You think explaining will clear things up. You think clarity equals resolution. But when you explain, you're doing something crucial. You're giving a narrative before you know the full situation. You don't know what evidence the police have. You don't know what they think happened. You don't know what questions they're building toward. And yet you're offering a story that can later be tested, challenged, and reframed. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Police interviews are not conversations. They are information gathering exercises. When an officer asks, "Do you mind telling me what happened?" they're not looking for closure. They're looking for details. Details that can be compared to other accounts, details that can be misunderstood, details that can be used selectively. Even if everything you say is true, truth does not always sound consistent under pressure. And inconsistency in the legal system often matters more than truth. This is why defense attorneys repeat the same advice endlessly. Explaining rarely helps, but it often hurts. Silence cannot be misquoted. Silence cannot contradict itself. Silence cannot be twisted. Which brings us to the phrase people say right before everything goes wrong. I have nothing to hide. This sentence has destroyed more cases than almost any other because it sounds confident, it sounds honest, it sounds like the opposite of guilt, but legally, it's meaningless, and strategically, it's catastrophic. When you say, I have nothing to hide, what usually follows is a request. Then you won't mind if we take a look. A search, a phone, a car, a bag, a house? Here's what most people don't realize. Consent searches bypass protections that exist specifically to protect innocent people. When you consent, you waive your rights voluntarily. That means anything discovered, even accidentally, is now fair game. Maybe there's an object that belongs to someone else. Maybe there's a message taken out of context. Maybe there's something legal that looks suspicious. Maybe there's nothing at all, but the search takes long enough to escalate the encounter anyway. You don't get bonus points for cooperation. You don't get a discount on consequences, and you don't get protection for being innocent. Police are not required to stop searching because you are a good person. They stop when they're done or when the law requires them to. Consent removes one of the strongest legal barriers you have. And now we arrive at the most misunderstood phrase of all. The one people believe is respectful, but actually does the opposite. I'll answer whatever you need. This is where people unknowingly give up control entirely. Answering whatever means you've agreed to a moving target. The scope can expand. The questions can shift. The tone can change. What starts as casual can turn formal without warning. And by the time you realize it, you're no longer just helping. You're participating in an investigation. Here's the key detail that almost no one tells you. Police can legally lie to you during questioning. They can say they have evidence they don't have. They can suggest someone else already talked. They can imply consequences that aren't real, but you cannot lie to them without serious legal risk. That imbalance alone should change how you approach every interaction. When you say, I'll answer whatever you need, you're stepping into a game where the rules are asymmetrical, where silence protects you and speech exposes you, where your words matter more than your intentions. Now, let's pause for a moment and talk about why this feels so wrong. We grow up believing that innocence plus honesty equals safety. We're taught to respect authority, to explain ourselves, to cooperate fully. And in many areas of life, that's good advice. But the legal system is not built on feelings or fairness. It's built on procedures, rules, and evidence. Police are not there to determine innocence on the spot. They are there to collect information. Prosecutors decide charges, judges decide admissibility, juries decide guilt, and your words can travel through that entire pipeline without you ever getting to explain what you meant. This is why lawyers exist, not because you're guilty, but because the system is complex and one wrong sentence can echo for years. So what should you say instead? Very little. You can identify yourself if required by law. You can be polite. You can ask if you're being detained or if you're free to go. And you can clearly, calmly say, I choose to remain silent and I would like to speak to a lawyer. That sentence has been demonized in pop culture. It's portrayed as suspicious, as hostile, as something only guilty people say. But in reality, it's a constitutional right designed specifically for moments like this. Invoking it does not mean you're refusing to cooperate. It means you're choosing to protect yourself in a system where words carry weight far beyond their moment. Here's the final, uncomfortable truth. Most people who get into serious legal trouble never plan to. They didn't wake up thinking today was the day everything would fall apart. They were normal, confident, innocent, and talkative. They believed that being honest would save them. And sometimes it's that belief alone that costs them everything. So the next time you see flashing lights, or hear a knock, or find yourself answering questions you didn't expect, remember this. Your silence is not an admission. It is a safeguard. Your rights are not obstacles. They are tools. And knowing when not to speak can be the most powerful thing you ever say. Because in the United States, the law doesn't just punish guilt. It punishes mistakes. And talking too much is one of the easiest mistakes to make. Stay calm, stay respectful, and above all, stay aware.